All right, Chief, you're on the clock.
Good morning. Good morning, members of the Budget Committee, Town Council, Town Manager, Finance Office. This year, we're going to do something slightly different. Last year, as you guys know, was my first time presenting the budget, and to say that the nerves weren't through the roof is an understatement. This year, collectively, the command staff and I have worked under the same premise as last year, being financially responsible, paying attention to the needs, not the wants, working their partnership with the budget chair, talking with the town council, and obviously my right-hand man here, the finance director. I'm proud to say that we made it through the first quarter here well within our budgetary lines. We're doing well. I think the adjustments that were made last year at the direction of the town manager and the finance director, I think they were right on par. So what I would like to do is to give you guys a quick intro of the command staff that currently serves the men and women and the citizens of Londonderry Police Department. To my left, I have Captain Patrick Cheatham. He oversees the airport division at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. Captain Cheatham will give a presentation real quick on his area responsibilities within that. I have Captain Mark Morrison. He oversees our Legal Professional Standards Bureau. He'll be giving a presentation as well. Next to him is the Deputy Chief, Jason Breen. Jason oversees the Operations Division of the Police Department. And Captain Timothy O'Donohue. Captain O'Donohue now serves the Services Bureau, which Timmy and Patrick had recently switched a couple months ago. Patrick has served in the Services Division for 5 years and wanted a change of scenery. Wanted to get a different aspect of the captain's service, so he wanted to go to the airport. And we're happy to have these two gentlemen switch, and without further ado, I'd like to bring up Captain Cheatham.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Chairman Farrell stepped out, but Chairman Farrell, Chairman Cassidy, members of the Town Council Budget Committee, fellow town employees, and the men and women watching from home on a Saturday morning. As Chief said, my name is Patrick Cheatham. I'm a police officer captain with our police department, where I've worked proudly for the last 21 years, and I'm also a Londonderry resident. And on September 1st, I took over command and responsibilities at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. And to say my first 2 months has been busy is an understatement. I'd like to thank Captain O'Donohue for the onboarding and training that he provided to me over these last 2 months. As Granite Staters, we're very much familiar with the New Hampshire primary, and I can tell you that we've had VIP movements almost every single week in just these last 2 months. Since we took over law enforcement responsibilities at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport 2006, the men and women of the Londonderry Police Department have provided safety and security for more than 39 million travelers and passengers, and also more than 3 billion pounds of cargo. And those statistics can easily be found at flymanchester.com. And when I calculated them yesterday, I myself was quite impressed by how many people and how many pounds of cargo have actually come through our quaint little community here in Londonderry, and I use that term loosely. Chief, if you could go to the next slide, please. Just by way, this is asked every single year, but it's a re-edification for those of you that have been around for a little while. Our entire complement of staff and equipment and training is paid entirely by the Manchester Airport Authority. Why is the Londonderry Police Department at the Manchester Airport? Because in 1994, when the new terminal was constructed and we moved from the Ammon Center, which was in Manchester, the new terminal was built entirely in Londonderry, and that is why the Londonderry Police Department provides law enforcement services at the Manchester-Boston Regional Airport. It does not result in any tax dollars to the town of Londonderry, and that's just something that we present every single year for those that maybe are new to our community, that aren't aware, and ask that question. Again, why do I see Londonderry Police at the Manchester Airport? Sir? We provide staffing up there. It's 1 police captain, 5 sergeants, 12 patrol officers. We are there 24/7, 365. We don't turn the lights off in the office, and just because the checkpoint might not be open or a flight not going out, our staff are there year-round every single day. Speaking about staffing and strategic planning, recently the airport director has asked us if we are able to increase our staffing up there, another officer on the day shift, another officer on the midnight shift, and in talks with the command staff and the chief, It's no surprise to anyone here in this room and from watching from home. There's a national recruiting challenge for law enforcement, and we are making preparations to not only fill staffing and spots within our community, our townside patrol force, so to speak, but also I think it's very, very important for members of the council and the budget committee and in our community to know that the airport is asking us to increase our staffing as well. And that's something that we can reduce staffing very quickly, but to increase staffing, literally, I think is going to take us probably 18 to 24 months, and you'll be hearing us speaking about that quite often. People also often ask about the administrative fees that are associated with our airport and our airport division. There is a small amount of money that comes back to the community. On average, it's anywhere from $90,000 to $100,000. How that number is calculated is the actual number of hours worked is multiplied by 2.5. That doesn't include holiday pay, vacation pay, sick pay. So those hours, that calculation is physical people walking in the terminal, driving the perimeter, hours actually worked, and that money does come back to the community. So it is our airport division is a small revenue generator for the community, and that's, again, something we try to present every single year. If anyone has any questions about the overall total budget, it's remained relatively steady over the last few years. Sir, next slide.
Hi, Captain, real quick.
Sure.
The request from the airport for more staffing, that cost will be covered by the airport, right? Or did I
Correct.
miss your commentary?
All personnel costs, medical, health, dental, all those costs are entirely paid for by the airport.
Wonderful.
So increasing staff, and also we do also apply for Homeland Security grants every single year that helps us, in our mission.
Wonderful, great.
Just to chime in there, so the airport division of the police department acts as a revolving fund, which means it needs to be self-sustained. So whatever the airport requests, the airport has to pay for. As Patrick mentioned, we do get that little benefit of between $90,000 and $100,000 for the services that we provide for them.
Thank you.
In conclusion, I would just like to say thank you to the Chief Bernard, to the town manager, for approving our transfer request. I'd been in services for nearly 5 years, and I had asked the chief for this opportunity, and I really do think it's the best way I can serve our community, our police department. In just 2 months, I've really enjoyed my time up there, and I appreciate everyone's support in making for that transition, because it is hard to leave an office that you've been in for 4 or 5 years, and having served there as a sergeant on and off from 2010 to 2016, serving as a captain up there is a much different responsibility. And I've in just 2 short months, I've very much enjoyed my time, and I just wanted to thank everyone here that's helped me in that transition to the airport, and I can't say thank you enough. And without any further questions, I've already used 3 more minutes of my time than I was allotted. But that's to be expected, having been here and presented for so many times.
As I've stated many times over the years, it's a customer service job. It's a face job. It's about telling a story up at the airport, which I think plays right into your skill set. So I think you're the right person at the right time.
Mr. Chairman, when I addressed the sergeants and the staff at our most recent command staff meeting, you're exactly correct. I said our goals are threefold. Safety and security, the people, places, and things in and about the airport, customer service, and visibility. Those 3 principles are the guiding principles that I've tasked our staff up there, and I think that they can easily, or not easily, but they can equally be applied to our townside patrol, but at the airport, you're absolutely correct, sir.
No, that's great. Ted Kitchens is a great guy. We really want to continue doing business with him, and it's up to you to make sure we do.
I can tell you, sir,
Just not setting any expectation or anything.
as the 5th captain to command our airport division, I've quickly learned and seen it really puts us on a national level having an airport division, and I take those responsibilities very seriously. It's also, I think, so many of the airport staff live here in Londonderry. The assistant airport director, Luis Elgazabal, resides in the south end of our town, and so many, the new assistant federal security director, Audra Wood, she and her family live in town as well. So many people that work at the Manchester Airport are embedded in our community, which I think only fosters that continued relationship that you reference, and that I pledge to make sure we maintain for another 17 years. Not that I'll be around for 17 years, but we've been at the airport now 17 years. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, well, outstanding job. Thank you. As we continue with our presentation, it's not going to take us an hour. We understand the importance of getting through this for everybody, and I'm going to bring up Captain Mark Morrison here in a minute. Want to talk about the department goals. We added one this year. I thought it was important to be transparent yet again, as the town manager asked us to do last year. And I want to mention these ones right here. Effective budget management, recruitment, training, and supervision, community engagement, and maintaining accreditation. When we entered into the accreditation process a couple years ago, we knew it was going to be a big feat. And it's the gold standard in policing, knowing that your police department has the best policies, best practices. We command that every single day. It's led by Captain Mark Morrison. It's a sense of pride for a law enforcement agency or the town to know that your department serves in that gold standard. There's only like 1,500 police departments in the nation that are that good. And I'm proud to say that we're one of them, thanks to the men and women of this police department. Community engagement, that's a priority of ours. And if that picture right there of the world's famous SRO, Dan Perry, everybody loves Officer Perry. I can't go anywhere in town without someone telling me how awesome and how much they loved Officer Perry. He's a rock star. He's probably more popular than Taylor Swift in the schools. That's for sure. And we absolutely love him, and he's doing a great job with these things. The community engagement also goes back to what we say we are and what we do. I think that's important. I think most people in this room here have had interaction with the police department. They know how we treat our citizens. They see what we do with our community, be involved with them, hosting programs, working closely with the Londonderry Police Association to co-sponsor those things. It's important. People or agencies do these things, but I like to think that we do them a little bit better than most because we really do what we say we're going to do, and we care about our community, we care about the future of our youth. Of course, recruitment, training, and supervision. Well, we can't have a good police department if we don't supervise properly. We can't have good officers on the road to protect those of our Londonderry community if we don't give them proper training. And recruitment. I think every person in here knows that that's a challenge. It's not a cliche to say that time and time again that staffing everywhere is down. It is. Everyone knows this. We're going to get into that closer with the next couple slides. And again, just to touch back on the effective budget management. I can't stress enough how much and how important it was for me to get that first year under the belt, get it out of the way, and work so close and diligently with the town manager, the finance director, to really look at these things and see where we can, shave and save. It is important. And for those members up there who have known me for a long time, and these gentlemen over here, I am very frugal. I say no to a lot of stuff, and that will continue because it's not my money. And without further ado, please allow me to bring up Captain Mark Morrison.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Despite my reputation for brevity, I'm going to really work through these slides very quickly. If you could just hit that next slide, please. The ask that I think the police department can sum up, for this year is to add to our prosecution line. We've been managing with one prosecutor for as long as I've been here, which is over 20 years. Our arrests have gone up, our calls are up, the complexity of the prosecution of cases is up, the lift that is required of a prosecutor today is not what it was even 5 or 10 years ago.
So tell us why.
Well, some of the duties that we have attached to our prosecutor right now, all the juvenile cases, all of the misdemeanor violations, and soon to be felonies are going to be arraigned in district court starting January 1. That's a huge shift from this program was called Felonies First. It was enacted by the state, and I think it was an extreme challenge, and I don't want to say a failure, but it just was not working. What's going to happen now? Felony arrests that we make, that arraignment was held in Superior Court. All of those arraignments are now going to be back in district court. So every arrest, every arraignment will be held in Derry District Court with our one prosecutor to help. in addition to, simple prosecutions or multifaceted prosecutions. We have the 91A request that we do, and every DUI arrest has an administrative license suspension hearing that can go along with it. When you're arrested for DUI in New Hampshire, there's both an administrative and criminal penalty that is associated with that. The criminal penalty is handled in court. The administrative penalty happens through a hearing that we also have to attend.
I'm
So-
just checking for understanding.
Yeah.
When they were arraigned for felony in Superior Court, was that county prosecution handled that?
Yes.
Okay, so from now, so again, another unfunded mandate from the state that, they're pushing down to the town.
I mean,
Well, let's be candid about it.
right. There isn't anything we can do about it.
I'm
And
not
we-
questioning whether we can.
And we really end up sort of in a geography problem where you have one person that may have to be in multiple places at one time. That means we just need more folks. This has been on our long-range plan, and that long-range plan is sort of here now. We had it in the 3 to 5 year, and then changes like felonies first, and just the time it is taking just to prosecute now is a lot longer than it used to be. We have a lot of unrepresented defendants. They have to be explained the court process. You can't, just take advantage of somebody who's unrepresented in court, and it's a lot of work.
So Captain,
Town
what's gonna
manager
happen
can
now
answer for
is
that
if
as
it's a
well.
felony first arrest, they're gonna transport them from Brentwood to Derry. Somebody has to do that from the sheriff's department, bring them to Derry, they get transported, and then they gotta transport it back to Brentwood,
Well, that's if they're in custody.
if they're in custody.
Yeah. So it's going to be,
I'm just trying to
A
get a clear
madhouse.
understanding of.
yeah, it's going to be a lot, and we don't have a choice but to deal with it, and we're just out of hours in the day, for one person to adequately do that. Never mind the sort of advanced things that we want to do, the different levels of trial prep and training we want to do with our folks. If you can hit the next.
Just one thing too, Captain. One of the things is why we understand is this is not just DWIs. This also consumes time for the victims of our community who have had a crime against them. Now, if you have a crime against you, you want prosecution, you want justice. A lot of times, for example, last week or 2 weeks ago, prior to our prosecutor going on her honeymoon, she had 20 trials for one day. If anybody's ever been to a courtroom or a trial, they take forever. Something has to give. I don't say this to talk ill about the court system. They don't care. This is your court docket. This is your responsibility. Figure it out. A victim can be victimized again, excuse me, by the process in which we've been given. I don't like it. I don't want it. The legal team doesn't like it. And the prosecutor doesn't like it. The prosecutor sometimes has to, quote unquote, dump a case or work out a plea that normally wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. But yet, then we have to explain to these victims how they're not getting the full justice they deserve. Yes, DWIs are important, and they take a tremendous amount of time. When we talk about patrol officers, how much time they spend doing a DWI report, as it's called, the initial traffic stop, the observations, all the field sobriety stuff, getting back to the station, completing a booking, if they have to be transported, as the town chairman said, out to the jail, they come back, they have to start typing their report. These things take hours for one case. And the prosecutor, it's not as simple as you walk in and you say, okay, we're gonna take this when the trial's a done deal. And there is a massive amount of trial prep that goes into these things, as the captain was saying. So I just wanted to jump in and say, it's just not about DWIs too.
Captain, are you expecting not just more expenses on the legal side, but also potentially on your officers as well with this new process?
With a loss of felonies first?
Right. So with this new process, demanding of time, will you expecting, further time and maybe other costs on the police department as well beyond just having a legal?
I don't expect to have a lot of extra costs more than we normally would with a loss of felony first on the patrol side. The officers are still going to have to present their case, do all their reports and evidence and everything else. That isn't going to change regardless of whether they drive 45 minutes to Superior Court or, 10 minutes to Dairy Court. That part isn't really the change. The big change is the level of work that the prosecutor is going to have to complete, the level of work our records department is going to have to process, the compressed timelines for discovery. They're now like 10 days for certain crimes and 20 days for others, depending on whether the person is incarcerated. Everything is going to speed up, and I mean, you're just physically out of hours in a day, and you only have one person to shove around to different hearings in different locations.
Okay, I think we're getting it.
Great.
All right.
I'm gonna make Maladuty the prosecutor again, because he works 7 days a week.
Some days I'd like my old job back.
Well, and
Totally kidding.
I know we joke, but there were many days that I spoke with Mike on the weekend, preparing for court that next day, and if you look at the numbers I have up here, some of our arrests, it's really difficult to absolutely pigeonhole crime rates and arrest rates. As much as we'd love for things to be on a graph that is on a straight line, it doesn't happen that way. But one thing that is clear, our projected DUI arrests this year is going to be around 140, when 3 years ago it was 60. Our warrants are up by 31% since 2021 and 20 era. I mean, it's just what it is. We didn't get to the slide yet that talks about the number of people that we've hired, but I think it's important to note that these numbers are where they are, even though we've had people that were in training, where 2 officers in a car, a trainee and an FTO, field training officer, riding around, and these are some of our numbers. Those officers are going to be on their own. We now have more people to generate activity and handle the calls for service that we have. Dairy, right next door, they have 2 full-time prosecutors and a part-time prosecutor, and that's a department that's smaller than us.
People
so-
in Derry are bad.
Well, we have some sayings about there. But the last other point that I'd like to make, we had tried to incorporate our victim witness advocate role, and we thought we had secured some grant funding for that. That grant funding was not able to be used in the way that we were hoping and were told as it was presented to us. So we are still on the search for grant funding to handle that victim witness advocate role. As the chief mentioned, there's a victim bill of rights, and it's there for a reason, just to avoid exactly what the chief talked about, re-victimizing people over and over again. And there are things that we have to watch out for both kids and adults, as they move through the court system. And right now, the prosecutor's responsible for doing all those communications. And sometimes the prosecutor is put in a different position where prosecutors don't work for the victim specifically. It's very important, all right? They don't work for the victim specifically. They serve the community and they have the interests of the victim in mind, but there are certain things that a victim may tell the prosecutor that the prosecutor now has to disclose, to the defense. That's a very unfortunate circumstance, and having somebody set aside just to walk people through the court process is why it's such a, important role. We're still going to pursue that, but that's not the funding that we're asking for. It's the prosecutor role. So
I do have a question, Captain. So
Please.
with the prosecutor role, have you explored other options? And I don't know if this is an opportunity or not, but the possibility of contracting, like prosecutor services or anything. I don't know if that's something we can legally do or even.
what we do right now, we have somebody that we retain to come in as needed, but that is sort of our fail-safe.
Okay.
Hit the emergency button. We need more help. I don't choose to, or I don't prefer to work that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have the stability and people that if they want to take a day off, they can take a day off. If they want to go on a honeymoon, we don't have to modify our entire department and other resources to have that happen. The stability and the consistency of somebody in that role, I think, would be the best suited, for our responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
I think we're getting it, so,
Can
thank
I
you.
ask a
You're
quick
welcome.
question, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely.
So what percentage of our arrests and citations are at the airport?
I don't have those numbers broken down. The airport isn't really a heavy generator of arrests. We do have arrests up there. Most of the arrests, Patrick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, are sort of the drunk and disorderly, sort of trespassing type arrests.
So my question leads to, like, even if it's a small percent, even if it's 5% or 10%, can we get the airport to bear some of the cost for an additional prosecutor? Not the entire cost, but a portion of it? Can we reduce that burden by having the airport cover some of that? Because that's part of the service we're providing to them. Those arrests that we do make at the airport, those DUIs that we get at the airport, whatever the case may be, though prosecution is part of that deal, and we're providing the prosecution. Agreed?
Well, certainly. Anything that comes in through us is prosecuted with our prosecutor.
It's an idea, and we can ask the question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
real quick, before we continue on with this, thank you, Captain Morrison. One of the things I wanted to, again, reiterate, last year when I was up here, I said I would never come to you guys for wants. I'm going to come to you for needs. If I come to you for a need, I hope that you trust that it's for legitimate purposes, and I'm not trying to find some fancy wish list thing. Our idea last year was early spring, to get the grant that was out there for a victim witness advocate. Victim services is a real thing. We're lacking in it. I hate to say it, it's embarrassing. Looking what our counterparts give their community to deal with these problems. We're not there. We're better than most. We got to get there. Had we gone and accepted that grant, which apparently it fell through, we would be in a hole. I'd be coming to you guys saying that I made a mistake. I trusted the grant. I have a person now employed by the town on a grant, and the grant's no longer available. Now we need to either let this person go, or I'm coming to you now for 2 positions. I'm a wise man. I am a young man. I'm not a stupid man. I know that would not be okay in the eyes of all of you up here. We didn't rush to it. We took our time, we reevaluated, and we had to come up with a strong understanding as to what is important for the organization to present to all of you up here today. And that's why we wanted to talk about that position of the second full-time prosecutor. I'd like to have Captain Timothy O'Donoghue come on up and talk about staffing and recruitment.
Good morning, thank you. Slide. So a lot of discussion has been made. We just discussed the non-sworn person, but I'd like to take a minute and talk about our sworn staffing numbers. As mentioned by the chair already, about 85% of our budget is dedicated to personnel, additional 7% for overtime. So that graphic represents about 92% of our overall budget. The authorized number for sworn staffing is at 67. Today we stand at 57 sworn officers. That number is exactly the same as it was a year ago. And it's not for a lack of trying, and I'll discuss that in a moment. If you guys look at that top line, you'll notice the black over white officers. That represents our patrol force. The one below it, the black over blue, that represents the airport. And that one red one on the top right, that's your rank and file patrol. So that's the bulk of our staff is our patrol staff. Moving on there, the yellow is our SROs, the green, detectives, the gray is our lieutenants. That orange line represents all the patrol sergeants that cover both the town and the airport. The bottom line looks a little different from it did last year. We just simply flipped those numbers. So the pending last year was 6. The pending is now 4. The vacant was 4 and is now 6. So we have currently 6 open spots. And in that pending line, we have 2 certified officers in a background and 2 non-certified officers scheduled for the upcoming academy. Slide, please. So recruitment from January 2020 to October of this year, I really should say it says total applicants 183. That's really total candidates. We have a lot of folks that go into our application portal and apply, and we never see them. But the folks that we did see, those 183 there, 58 of those were PT or written test failures. Another 59 of them failed to get past our oral board. And then the 44 and the 22, those that passed those other things were given a conditional officer and ended up in our background process. 22 were failures out of the background. So during the course of the background investigation, we found something that immediately disqualified them from moving on. That 44 number is a little deceiving because that 44 number, very similar to the background failure. So that 44 is we find something or we're leading up to something and someone says, hey, you know what? These questions are tough. I don't want to go forward, or hey, I'm not really comfortable going forward on a polygraph, and then they withdraw from the process that way. So we will get some background failures. You know, they fail the psych, they fail the poly, and they're out. That additional 44 represents folks that may have been uncomfortable in that process and on their own, and rightfully so on their own, said, hey, I'm going to decline to continue. What that leads us to, since January 1st of 2020, we've hired 23 officers, which is pretty good. We're happy with that number. We'll take it. The problem is that bottom red line. Retired or resigned since January, the same time, is 25. So our attrition is outgaining our gains here, and it's a challenge. So this is the same challenge. We've talked about it. All the departments are facing it. This is no different than you'd find in Derry or Hudson. And if anything, I think we're a little ahead of the game. We have a primary focus on finding and hiring certified officers. We save a little bit there in terms of training and other costs associated with different things. It's just a little bit easier. It's a little more efficient to bring on a certified officer. We tend to coach them more as opposed to teaching them. So we get them up and running. We get them on the road very, very quickly and efficiently.
Captain,
Please.
so
question.
you've had 183 total applicants and 183 either fail or withdraw?
Of that number, yes, from that pool there.
Okay, so 183 and 183. So
So-
basically negated from all the applicants, right?
Yeah, so if we went back a slide, like I showed you, that 57, we're at net zero. I mean, we tread water. We're not exactly swimming.
Right.
And it's not from a lack of trying. I'm not trying to make excuses, but we're not willing to negotiate or lower our standards.
Oh, no, I'm not
So
saying
yeah,
to do that.
so it's just the way the numbers fall.
No, it's just interesting to see that we've had 183 applicants, and of those 183 applicants, either fail in one way or another.
Yeah, no, the same in that same period we did get 23 through. So
Okay, so you're
Sorry.
not counting those 23 that
no,
got through in that
yeah,
183?
yeah, correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Real quick, if I can. This number of 183, when we talked about it this week, when I tested in 1999 and 2000, I'm sure Captain Morris and the gentleman over there, we would go to a police test. There'd be 150 to 180 people for one town for one opening. Once a year, if you're lucky. This is the reality of today. 183 in 3 years for 3, 4, 5, 6 positions. And as the captain said, and as I said last year, and it's been said in years past, we could fill that tomorrow. You're not gonna like what we give you. I don't want them working for us. I don't want them serving you folks. We have a standard and we will never waver from it. We will never waver from that. These numbers do look shocking, but it's the reality. You know, it's a dangerous job. People aren't jumping into it. They can make other money in the private sector. And of those that have retired, we've lost,
25.
gosh, probably 3 or 4 that had that 20-plus year range. We've lost them to, you know, moving on to retirement jobs, other things. They've served their community. They've done their time. They want to be done.
The good news with that number is those that retired, there was a window in which we had a number of officers at that point. We don't currently have that. Outside of the command staff, we have very few, if any, well, actually, there are none outside the command staff that are in that retirement window. So some of this, you know, kind of happens in cycles. So right now, we're actually pretty good. We're not necessarily at risk of losing folks to retirement at the sergeant level, lieutenant level, and the patrol level. We've reevaluated the way we recruit. We've reevaluated the way we test. We've moved to, rolling to kind of admissions. And once we get a pool of candidates, we then test them. We've opened it up for certified candidates. We're constantly taking certified candidates anytime, anywhere. Our training staff and our training folks, if there's a certified candidate, we get them out here. We put them through a PT test. We put them through an oil board. We get them command interviews. So no longer are we back to that, that spring and fall kind of hiring events. We're doing everything we can here, and we've really changed the model. In fact, we're a little bit ahead of it now. Some of these other departments are following what we're doing. So if we go-
I have one weird question. If you have a police officer that's certified from another state or certified federally, can they do a lateral transfer in and do some kind of a law class to get their New Hampshire certification?
So depending on where they go and what type of academy they went to, there are certain rules required by police standards and training. Generally speaking, it's just really if they're a certified police officer, they're going to come out. We're going to see if we can test them out of the law package. So we've actually had pretty good success. We get a kid out of Mass, maybe they grew up in New Hampshire. They're likely to test out in terms of knowing the New Hampshire statutes and the motor vehicle code. So there is the ability to test out. And again, we have a preference for that because we're not teaching them how to be police officers. We're just coaching them how to be Londonderry police officers.
Right.
So.
And despite the openings, we're budgeting 67 officers.
That's my understanding now, yes.
Yes.
We shifted last year to right-size some lines, but we're back to the
Yes.
the 67
Yep.
number.
We're budgeting for 67. And one important point to mention in the context of recruitment is we've got a brand new contract. And that contract gets, we had fallen behind in terms of the market. And I think we were starting to see that in people leaving. That's no longer the case. I think we've got one of the most competitive contracts in the state. And that's going to put us in good stead, I think, going forward.
We've already seen that with certified officers, because we'll actually bring in lateral or certified officers, and we'll appropriately place them within our steps. So that's already coming to fruition. We're already seeing a benefit there. So thank you.
Big reason for us is we're forcing overtime now. So as we hire more officers, our overtime line will go down, and it will flush itself out. And forcing overtime is just gonna chase officers away.
And if you go back one slide. Again, if we look at that white over the blue, I mean, that's what we're talking, right? That's who we're bringing in. We're filling those white spots and those blue spots. And ideally, we would move to the yellow and the green. There wasn't asked for SROs. There's always, our detectives are carrying, I think, over 130 cases right now, 30 cases apiece. So, we're trying to bring them in because we're asking a lot of these folks.
What, I have a question. When you say the Londonderry Police Department is one of the most competitive police departments in the state, you're talking in terms of salaries and benefits, correct?
That's correct,
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say, not only that, but that only happened because of the working partnerships that the unions have with the budget.
Yep.
Presenting their competitive salaries that other departments are doing to the town manager. Also the reputation that is out there. It's a humble brag, but it's not me. This has been this way. I've been here for 23 years. It's been this way since I got hired here. It's the reputation that's also carried this town to have some of the best. People want to be a part of that. And last year we were up here, we talked about staffing and numbers being down. And I said to you folks last year that if the numbers increase, we're going to add a body in detectives. Because again, as the captain mentioned, they're running 130 cases for each detective, plus backgrounds, plus call-outs for deaths or other crime scene matters. There's a lot that goes into it. We're down 6 as of today standing here. There'll be a process starting soon. That 6 will be down to hopefully 3 or 4 taken by early spring. We're going to be right where we need to be come June or July. And like I said last time, when we're up here telling you that we still draw certified officers, I think I mentioned this to the budget chair, this is on an average, a basic number of $100,000 savings. And last year we hired, I think it was 8 certified officers that some other town had lost. We won, we recouped them, saving a ton of money for the taxpayers. So it's not that we can't recruit, it's not that people don't want to work here. We have a young department. So this should sustain us for a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Captain, yep.
Thank you, Captain.
Just gonna touch base real quick. Historical data. I can barely read that, so if you can't, just ask me. And it's a huge TV and I still can't see it. Incident reports. The trend, as you can see, it started, dipped down at the COVID area. Now we're back up. So this morning, to date, our incident reports. We're at 1,800. So, and we've still got a couple months to go. Let's drop right down to the arrests. The arrests, you saw we were steady around that 18, 19 range. And obviously before 18, we were a lot higher than that. But then we dropped because of COVID. 2022, we had 560, starting the trend. Today, we're at 592. So we're going to beat that number, clearly, by a lot. Calls for service. That one shows us at 33,157. This morning, we're at 32,470. calls for service. 2 months ago, and we still have the winter season coming up, the holiday season coming up. Accident reports, 554 last year. As of today, this will be a great one to share. We're at 364. So, inquiring minds are like, how the heck does that happen? It happens because we're putting more cops on the street. We're increasing our traffic stops. We're increasing our visibility. Thanks to the Traffic Safety Committee and the complaints that people are able to share with different parts of the town, we're able to put officers in those areas when applicable. So right now, motor vehicle stops, we're at 10,731 for the year. So for people that say that they don't ever see the police in their neighborhood or that they don't make car stops, I don't know about you, but 10,731 car stops is a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot. So the officers that you folks employ, that you want in your neighborhoods, are out there doing their job, and these stats show it. These aren't inflated. This is the reality of what police work is. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, some are up, some are down, and that's where we're going. So to sit here, and I'm not gonna, use it to my advantage and say, well, you should be cautious. The trends are showing what we're gonna be back to. We're gonna be back to normal numbers or higher. We all know what's happening in our community. It's booming. More residents are coming in, more apartments, more complexes, more businesses equals more traffic. More traffic, more accidents, more speeders, more violations, more traffic stops. So that's a proud one to share with you folks, is that the accidents are down. The proposed budget, the finance director is so smart, this is what he tells me. He tells me that we're gonna be at 10,480,000. 85% of that takes care of all the personnel expenses. The overtime is at 7. And I'll say it before anybody asks me. What do we do to combat overtime? Well, we say no to a lot of stuff. We try to have a lot of our training done on duty. It's no secret, but when we have someone do it on duty, that means a part of town is not being covered. Trying to be, responsible with our dollars. We're trying to do what's in the best interest of our budget for the community, and as you folks have directed us over the years. The overtime is also, as we talked about last time, I believe it was Councilman Green last year asked me, how can we limit, overtime and things of that with this slide last year? Well, we can't make people not call out sick. We can't make people not take vacations. We can't have people's family members not get sick. It's like all of us. We all are entitled to time off. We all have families. We all have things that come up, and we have to backfill those things. We have to put the police officers on the street to continue to meet the needs of our community. As you can see there, the 3%, that's a great one. That's just contracts and utilities. And then the 5% represents our capital lease, property, surplus, training, and tuition. I do believe, as I stand here before you folks and tell you that this command staff, including lieutenants who are not here today, take their job and responsibility very seriously when it comes to the budget. We have a great working relationship, lieutenants and captains, when they come to each of us in divisions and ask for the requests, the wants, the needs, the must-haves. We are on these things when I tell you to trust me that we pay attention to these things. We sure do. Here's the best slide of the day. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not seen this, the Londonderry Times put this out the other day. That's Officer Frank Civitelio. He is a trip. He is so much fun. He's on training right now. And he's doing a sock hop bag race thing, whatever it's called. I would trip and probably take out my shoulder or worse. And this right here, I wanted this in here for a reason. When we talk about community engagement and what the men and women of your police department do, yes, we do DWIs. Yes, we go to domestics. Yes, we go to fatal car crashes. These things right here is what it's all about. Protecting our community, engaging with our citizens, and moments like that. The first day I saw that photo, I couldn't stop smiling. I am so proud and so happy to serve as your police chief with the men and women of this police department. I hope that presentation was well under an hour. I don't want to get scolded. And if any members of the Budget Committee have anything that you need from me, you know how to find me. As always, Town Council, Town Manager, thank you. Assistant Town Manager, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Any questions for the chief?
I do have a question.
Please proceed.
Chief, your 5% line, if you can go back a slide. Your 5% for your other, for capital leases, property supplies, training, tuition.
Yep.
Does that also include maintenance for vehicles and the building and all of that?
That's under the building line. That was the one, we talked about last year, the building. We were funded last year for, or maybe FY '23, we were funded for $18,000 to maintain that 20-year-old building.
Yeah, not a lot.
No. So again, working with the budget committee and the town manager and the finance director last year, we were able to fix that to an appropriate level. And I'm happy to tell you that that building maintenance line is, I think, where it should be. And we've done some great upgrades over there to some necessities that were needed.
So that doesn't fall into your graph?
That 5%, I believe it does, but
It falls into the 5% category?
yeah, which, what we were before, I think it was like 118% expended in the years past because it wasn't properly funded.
Correct.
Yeah.
So with your experience and judgment over the past year and a half now
Yeah.
and working with Justin, do you feel it's more adequately funded or?
I do, and I don't want to say this because I don't know where Justin is, if he's sitting behind me or not. But I don't usually trust my back to a lot of people. But if Justin's back there, I tell you, I do trust him when we talk about finances and we're able to really look at these things and come together as a team and figure out what's in the best interest for our community. Meaning that, people want to know where their money's going. And like I said last year, Ted, is that building is a sense of pride for me. It's not my house, but I treat it as if it was my own. And we maintain it as if it was my own. And it looks amazing over there, and I'm proud of it. And if there's an area within our budget that I think is not appropriately funded, I would have discussions with the town council. I would have discussions with the finance director. I'll have discussions with the budget committee, and I'll make sure that continually these numbers are accurate as possible.
Wonderful, thank you.
Absolutely.
Chief, can you speak a little bit to the IT line
The IT line,
or a department
sure.
division? I'm just curious, so it's going from 254 in this year's approved budget to 361.
Well, I will tell you that if I can read that, I'm lying. I know we just, where did Campbell go? He's over here. We had discussions on the IT line because there were some contractual increases that obviously are out of our control.
64.
IT line, Division 10.
It's under support.
64.
Is yours the smallest?
Sorry, can you go that line again? You looking at?
The
So
management
page-
services.
Page 64, the purchase services, professional and technical section. It's up $97,000 budget, year over budget year.
So, yes, let me explain what that is there. It's not that bad. And I'm saying that in terms of, well, no, I'm saying that in terms of, I spoke with the public safety IT person, Tom Roy, and he had a different idea of where things should be placed than I did when I created the budget last year. So if you look at rentals and leases, last year there was a budget of $44,000. If you look at this year's budget, that's no longer there. That was moved up into that 197 that you're referencing.
Sure. But that category or subsection in general is up 97,000, accounting for both the.
Yes. And that is due to various contracts for their IT services. This line here accounts for all their contracts, their copiers, and various items. And that line will actually be decreasing another 28,900.
Okay.
And the reason for that is if you look, the telephone line is still funded at 28,900.
We don't spend against that.
They put that in their management services line.
Okay, so we're still looking at a 50% increase in that category.
Correct. The IT department's the police department's IT division is somewhat recently new, within the last 5 years, to boost their security. So we are working towards making sure that they're getting funded at the level they need to make sure to prevent any technical issues or security issues there could be.
So two things happened on the line. We reallocated lines that weren't spent, and then the 50% increase is reflective of all the increases in like our software costs in, licensing and all that.
Exactly, and a lot of those licensings and software increase, you're looking at 3 to 5% for each one. We try to get those contracts tied to CPI or something of that nature, but currently that wouldn't matter.
And Tom's very good. We actually renegotiated a bunch of them. We've cut some, and that's still what we're left with. And we have that broken down, and we can provide that.
Yeah,
to
if any
anybody.
detail would be appreciated at the next workshop. It's 3 to 5% of
Oh,
everything.
no, absolutely, I have it right there. That's why I jumped up.
I believe it may be the case as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, that, we've been very methodical about making sure that we understand what contracts are out there so that they can be reflected in default. And I think it may be the case that there were some contracts that were,
Correct.
in effect, that were not reflected in default, and we don't want that. We can't have that.
Correct, and I mean, that also shows, if you look at the line, how much was spent last year compared to what it was budgeted at. You'll see it's a significant amount. So this year I went and focused on trying to get those contracts to make sure they're accounted for. That way we're not overspending that line and then not providing a service somewhere else. Since we have them in place and they should be reflected in the budget to actually show what the town is spending, rather than just showing it in the actual line once it's spent.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
And I have something, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please proceed.
So jumping back to the possibility of adjustments to the airport contract to cover some of the cost for the prosecutor, when is the contract renegotiated with the airport?
It's gonna be next year.
2025.
2025, okay, so even if it's something we can't fix now, it's something we could get on the table then.
Just so you know also, sir, that an officer who is working at the airport, should he or she have to go to court, that overtime is billed as airport overtime. Another example is we had an arrest at the checkpoint this morning for a domestic violence case for the town of Hillsborough. That arrest will never go to court, that won't incur court costs. And just because I had that opportunity to just share some numbers like that, but that contract is 2025, and we're only doing a couple dozen arrests a year up there, believe it or not.
Fair enough, but there's still an argument to be made to try and get the airport to cover some of that as part of the contract. If we can get money from them for that, why not?
And
We will try.
I'll work with the chief of the airport director.
Cool.
Anything else? Yes.
Okay, so, in the line under, what's this under? On page 65 of it, under the uniforms and cleaning benefits, the amount that was actually spent, 126,000, but you're only appropriating $90,000. I was just wondering, what was the reasoning for the 30% decrease in the amount that you're, asking for and the amount that's been spent? What was the thought process? Were there some sort of trends? The reasoning that this could be?
Give me 1 second.
Joe, what page again?
So page 65.
Thank you.
I think we have an easy explanation for that one.
It just caught my eye because it was such a steep
Yep.
decrease. I was wondering how.
Hey, I thought decreases are good.
Oh, they are good. That's why.
So that's a mixture of two items. It's based on the staffing level. Essentially, part of the union contract is we pay a certain dollar amount for them to maintain and upkeep their uniforms, so we don't necessarily have to buy them new uniforms every single year. The other aspect is recently, within the last 3 years, we realized that the IRS requires us to run this expense through payroll, so that way the taxes are paid on it. Our ERP system, by saying it's not the best, I would be giving it too much credit, won't allow us to segregate that expense out between departments. So that's why you'll see that 126 in that one, because that's where it was, that's where the ERP system put it. You'll likely see the same thing in the fire department as well when you get to that portion, is you'll see 0 actuals and then 1 well over. And the reason being is between those items, if that makes sense, if that,
Does.
perfect.
Are you
Good. If I can make a comment that those detailed questions with lines in the book and stuff like that, I think our next workshop is gonna be more catered to that, to give everybody a chance to look through the books and then come back on November 20th, and then we'll have more questions like that, I assume.
Fair
All
enough.
right,
Good.
so you're trying to tell me your ERP system is not highly configurable and that you can't move things around inside of it?
Our ERP system is no longer available for sale.
All right, so as a guy who knows just a little bit about ERP, maybe someday in the near future, you should surface that, and perhaps we can move to some sort of SaaS system that is more up to date.
I would agree with that. My concern right now is in these economic times, you're looking at the estimates I've gotten has been between 150 and 350 in how much it would cost.
We can have an
And-
offline discussion, because the ERP software business is suffering the same economic times that everyone else is suffering, and they are more aggressive in their pricing now than they have been in the past.
Well, that's great news to hear.
We should have a conversation about that offline, and maybe I can help with that process, since I did it for 20 years.
That would be great to hear, and
may know
I'll tell you
someone
right now, my staff in a lot
I
of
may
town
know
hall will be
somebody.
very happy to get rid of this ERP system.
I may know somebody to call.
Yes.
We are currently the only one in New Hampshire that utilizes this system.
We're using One World, right?
New World,
New World.
which was bought out by
Which is now
Tyler
called One
Technologies. Nope, still New World.
Okay.
They're no longer, they're still servicing it, they're no longer selling it.
Is this the same ERP company out of Michigan?
I believe so.
All right, I know who it is.
It's now Tyler Technologies.
All right, never mind. All right.
I don't know how the police turned into my ERP system, but I do like the conversation. Let's keep going.
I understand, but I'm on the clock.